Hello there guys, and welcome to Mad Doc Minis. This is part 2 of the Planetary Defense Turret scratch build. If you haven't caught the first video, go ahead and check that out on my channel. This is a baby food topper. If you've got young kids, you'll know what these are. I've used it on the front end of the barrel here for the cowling, but I'm also going to use another one on the rear end of the barrel for a bit of extra detailing. So just going to chop off the fastener there, and that super glues right onto the structure. Really good little things. If you have access to some, save some, because you're going to be using them a lot on industrial builds. Really good little shapes, greebling for no effort. Here I'm just adding a doorway to the base. I actually have to redo the base from scratch because I messed up off screen, but just cut a little oblong out of the base here using a sharp knife, and then slot these rhino doors in from the rhino tank kit with a little bit of hot glue at the back to hold them in place. This makes a serviceable armoured door. Base goes back on there, and then I'm just going to cut strips of EPVC, which is a fantastic crafting material, just to line the doorway, make it look a little bit inset, a little bit more realistic, and it just finishes off the rough cuts, makes it look 10 times better for little effort. Bending a little piece of that EPVC here to go around the curved contour of the tub at the top end of the door frame. So now that we have a door in the base, we also need a door at the top of the superstructure to give models a way to get up to the gun platform. Here I'm just gluing a little bit of cardstock to the back of a kind of oblong frame that I got from a child's toy, and the Terminator poking through is entirely unintentional but quite funny, but that just super glues onto the back of the superstructure there. We're going to make a little armoured window out of a piece of Lego, this little Lego grill here. We just chop the middle bar out of that, and it's a little window shape for virtually no effort really. Super glue that onto the center, and then the Terminator is poking through the window as well, just for extra laughs. So I'm also going to glue this really old, really heavy metal plate from a 1990s Predator tank kit onto the front of the build for an extra little bit of detail. Wasn't going to use it for anything else. Happy to use up old parts in this way. Brings a little bit of nostalgia to the build as well. Also, a little bit of extra Lego goes underneath these gun assemblies here, just to really add a bit of detail to this otherwise barren looking area. They make for good looking support structures. A little bit of extra Lego is also used around the base in a minute as well. These are wedge shaped pieces, and just going to bulk out the base, give a little bit of extra structure to that area. Wanting to add a little bit of extra detail to the radar dish, I took it off and just glued a little bit of plastic rod cut to the right length into the center of the dish. A little bit of super glue does the job there, and then I attach a little piece of Lego right onto the end of that rod. Lots of Lego in this build, guys, but it's so useful. I really highly rate it, and that just finishes it off nicely, in my opinion. So I've also got this little awkward area under the barrel assemblies here. Just looks a bit unfinished, so I decided to cut a little bit of drinking straw to the right length and just glue that in with a little bit of super glue. Just wedge it right in there. Just makes it look a little bit more tidy, a little bit more rounded, much better. And then go back to the radar dish, and I decided I want a little bit of wire running from the dish down the back of the structure, so I glue that on with a little bit of super glue, this low gauge electrical wire, run it down the back, use a little bit of Lego to act as a socket at the back there, and just glue the wire right into it. And that ends up being a nice little detail later on, just brings the whole thing back to scale. The more detail the better in big builds like this. The door also needs a handle, so we take this handle from a Lehman Russ tank kit and just glue that on. You can't really see it in this image very well, but it does add a needed detail. A little bit of extra greebling with more Lego, lots and lots of Lego, can't get enough of it in this build. And here I'm just going to glue on, using a bit of hot glue, a bit of EPVC to act as an armoured plate at the front end of the structure. Just layers it out a little bit, and in order to make that look a bit more plausible, just going to use these self-adhesive pearls from a craft shop just to add nice little rivet details on there. Take your time with things like this, get the spacing of the rivets right, always use more than you think as well, just sells the whole thing much better. So we're going to use a little bit of granny grating next. A lot of hate out there in the crafting community for granny grating. It's because I think people can instantly tell what you've used. I don't get it. It does the job perfect for me. Glues down well, cuts well, easy to work with, looks what you want it to look like, which is grated flooring. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's granny grating all the way for me, guys, I'm afraid. So that was a bit of a tedious job. Then we discovered that Ruminate is actually really cool for railings. I don't have enough pieces to go around the whole way around the platform, so I have to recycle a few from the build itself to make sure I've got enough. I then hot glue some EPVC armoured plates onto the sides to hide that mistake, and just kind of follow suit with some more rivets, some of those self-adhesive pearls again, just to tie it into the front armoured plate. But that gives me just enough Ruminate parts to go all the way around the structure. They look really, really good as railings, and are actually the right height for miniatures. Just super glue those in at the base there for a bit of extra strength. Imperial Aquila goes on the front. Little bits of detail like this really, really help to sell the build, and it's only ever going to be Imperial. So here I'm just kind of putting the gun barrels back onto the build here because I'm getting ready to actually spray this. So I just want everything kind of covered up. I have to tape the plasma coils there so they don't get sprayed. Take it outside, start with a little bit of grey primer. Wanted to use primer first because there's a lot of smooth plastic on this build. I then chase that up with some black spray paint. These are both pound shop cans I'm using here, and I use my more expensive spray, which is going to be lead belcher, just to give it a little bit of a bit of colour, because most of this is going to be silver or gunmetal coloured. So don't actually need too much of this as well. Covers really well, just adds a little bit of extra layering for no effort really. So once that's good and dry, I took it back inside and removed the insulation tape from the plasma coils. You can see the white strips left where the tape's been. Just need to tidy those up with a little bit of lead belcher paint. Takes a few coats to bring it up to the right colour. I actually then opted to bring a bit of extra colour into the build with some Castellan green. I just felt it needed extra colour. Could easily have left the whole thing gunmetal coloured or lead belcher coloured and weathered that as is, but the extra colour really ended up enhancing the look of the build. Just selected various parts of the structure to paint this colour, the railings, the armoured plates, various parts of the gun barrels, got some of it as well. Yeah, definitely worth doing. Just be quite selective about what you decide to paint really. So the next thing I do is actually paint the wire going down the back of the structure in Mephiston red. The whole thing gets washed with Nuln Oil. I would actually not advocate using this to use on big builds. Instead, use cheaper washes. But if you can, Nuln Oil is obviously very good quality. Just doesn't go very far. What I do then is after washing the whole thing down, including the green parts with that, is I actually further tint the barrels with some turquoise contrast paint. Just brings it further into the blue-green spectrum for the LED lights to shine through. I then draw around a 40mm base to add a circle to one side of the turret base. I paint this circle green, Castellan green. I repeat the process with a smaller base, 25mm base on the back above the door, and this is for some later detailing. Just adds a bit of extra interest to the base, which was looking a bit barren. We'll come back to that in a sec. I paint the eye of the Admech skull with a red paint as well. Just that's a kind of like spot colour really, the red. These are the transfers that I use all over the build. Again, really easy way of adding detail. So here you see me gluing an Aquila to the centre of the big circle that I've just painted onto the base. You know, be selective with transfers, but you kind of do that in various places and then use a little bit of medium just over the top to kind of bring it back to a matte finish. So here we're just adding a little bit of streaking effects to the base, a little bit of rust effects, again using some contrast paints and some more Nuln Oil, just brushing that through for a bit of weathering. We're kind of nearly there really. This is kind of the end result. it ended up looking pretty good. There are some things I think I can improve on, but overall I'm pretty happy, especially with the integration of the light element. We're going to go to a screen in a minute to give you a good look at it, and I'm going to shut up and let the visuals do the rest. So thanks for watching, guys. Like, share and subscribe, all helps.